What's up guys, today we're going to be covering the best gods for every role and class to carry ranked right now as of patch 5.20. Keep in mind this is for ranked conquest mainly, not necessarily for competitive or casuals, but it will probably be relevant there too. And of course, this video is going to eventually get outdated, so if you are watching this a few months in the future, especially if you're watching in like Season 6 onwards or something like that, it's going to be slightly inaccurate. Or maybe entirely inaccurate depending on how much the meta changes when Season 6 drops, but I will try and update this every so often when there's a big meta shift, likely with Season 6, and link to a newer version if I've made one. But without further ado, let's get right into it. So kicking it off with mid laners. The first one up would be Frey, in my opinion. She's got pretty much the best burst damage in the game as well as good sustained damage in fights. She's really hard to punish early on now because her 2 is like so easy to activate and clear waves with. She has pretty good sustain, just default and also with Bancroft's Talon, which you usually build on her. She has kinda weak CC, but her insane burst damage makes up for it because as long as someone else on her team can provide that CC, she could just nuke people in fights. She's basically unstoppable in ranks once you get past about 10 minutes because no one can really shut her down that well in a fight unless you shut her down early game, which is possible, but once she gets past that kind of 10-minute mark when she has a couple of items done, she's practically unstoppable without communication, which is why I think she's such a good pick in ranked right now. Second up is Agni. Agni is like basically strong at all stages of the game, which is what makes him so good for ranked, because people find it really hard to deal with a god that is strong at all stages. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, you can punish X god in the early game, or oh, X god has a really weak late game, but you can't really do that with Agni. He has really fast clear at speed buff, allowing him to get quick pressure in mid, clear the wave fast with his dash, and get control of mid camps, red invades, things like that. He has decent AoE CC with the stun they can even do it over walls with the bombs and stuff. He has insane burst in team fights, great objective secure and burn with all 3 of his ultimates, and he's just a really solid pick for mid right now in my opinion. He's not necessarily always going to be the best, but he's really hard to punish and he's just strong at all stages of the game, as I mentioned. Now, where Agni is more of a safe pick, strong at all stages of the game, the Morrigan is a much more risky pick, but one that can pay off insanely well for you. She's got decent early pressure, mainly due to the fact of her passive giving her that extra clear in lane. She has basically infinite potential with her ultimate. A lot of the time you want to do early transforms into either jungles or mids, usually jungles, to perform like early ganks and things like that. But in teamfights, you can also transform into solo laners or even supports for a lot of CC and things as well. She has great ganks, as I mentioned, with things like jungle transforms. And even disregarding her ultimate, she still has good damage with just like vanishing in and then just popping her 1 and 2 combo, especially with Bumbers. You can get into fights and out of fights really easily, which makes her insanely strong. Moving on to some solo laners. So Shem will be the first one up. He's been strong for a long time because of Berserker's Shield, but with the passive change, I don't think he's quite as good, but he's still definitely one of the top picks for solo. Obviously, as I mentioned, there's Berserker's Shield, which he doesn't double proc anymore, but can still proc in an AoE and get a lot of sustain from it. The new passive is kind of strong in a different way, where before he got insane like Berserker's Shield sustain and things like that, and like double procs on Stonecutting Sword. Now it's just like a ton of extra damage, which is also really powerful. He can combo his abilities well in a variety of different ways, like you can dash in for the knock up, then root, then taunt. You can initiate with a taunt, then straight into a knock up and a root. You can basically use all 3 of his CCs in any way you want, which is really powerful in fights. He also has great zone control and frontline from solo, but you can also flex him into the jungle as well, which is really nice. And he's just overall a really solid pick for solo that almost always wins the lane, except against certain matchups, and does really well in teamfights as well. The next solo laner I pick will be Sobek. This is more of like, where Shem is aggressive and wins the lane all the time, this is much more of a passive solo laner that doesn't let the other enemy win the lane. He has great CC being a Guardian with the pluck, the knock up and the slow. He's got good damage, great for like sieging and anti-sieging because he can often easily pick up items like Emperor's Armor for sieging, and also like if the enemy gets aggressive on a siege you can pluck in their carry and then you just win the fight off of that basically because you'll get a free kill on the carry. And also for sieging you can pluck their front line straight out of the Phoenix, blow them up, and then you have a free like entrance into the Phoenix basically. Same thing with the pluck, it's a great way to start a fight for the same reasons. You can pick a carry off early or something like that. He's got an insanely safe laning phase and he's like an anti-aggressor where like if they pick something like a Bellona, an Osiris, an Shen, a Kukulkan, a Hercules, anything like that wants to just win the lane and snowball off of that, Sobek just shuts that down entirely, so he's more of a great pick against aggressive gods than he is against passive ones. And he can also flex into support, which does give him some power in the pick ban phase. And the final one is Baron Samedi, who is similar to Sobek in that he's the anti-aggressor. He's not really looking to dominate lane, but he basically doesn't lose lane against a single pick. He's got insane utility and CC in fights. He has healing, slow immunity, attack speed and power reduction, obviously the suck. He works best as a tank from solo in my opinion, but he can also flex into support and mid, which is really powerful in the peak ban phase. And the fact that he has insane teamfight potential, while also it's basically impossible to lose lane on him, just makes him really powerful right now for solo. Moving on to some junglers. The first one is Mercury. Golden Blade is fucking broken. Until that item gets nerfed into the ground or the interaction gets changed with Meiji Look, he's going to be a powerful jungler. Basically to start with Katana, rush boots, then get Golden Blade and you insta-clear camps. Like, it's absolutely broken. He's got really great early pressure, mostly because of Golden Blade and how quickly he can farm, but he's just got good early pressure anyway as a Mercury. And he also has decent late game as well, as long as he can get into fights safely and then crit people to death, but he can be a little risky in late game team fights. If you like ult him for an engage, you might get blown up, so be careful with that. He has great CC, albeit somewhat risky because you CC yourself basically, like you'll dash at someone, you're also stuck in place for like 2 seconds while you spin them, so you gotta be careful with that as well. His rotations are really good though, because you can often ult straight out of a jungle corridor into a lane and things like that, or ult straight down a lane, and he's got really good rotations because of that. Basically his entire sort of weakish early game was removed because of Golden Blade, so that just makes him insanely strong in this meta right now. Second up is AlQun. This is really your quintessential snowball pick. If you get a small lead, you can like solo objectives early and just really take a lot of fights because of how quickly you can snowball on this god. He's got like insane sustain between fights, so if he like picks a lot of fights, as soon as you get something like Bancroft's Talon or Polynomicon or some kind of sustain online, plus his passive, he sustains really well off of camps due to the fact that his auto attacks will heal for full instead of normal 33% on AoE mage abilities. He's extremely versatile in the way you can use his kit. Like, you don't even have to just execute people, you can use the ult as an engage and then just drop your one, blow people up. You can engage with the one, or you can engage with blink, you can just run at people, you can 2 for like a lot of auto attacks and get the maximum damage out, or you can just 2, 3 and then 2 again and just blow people up that way. He's got a really versatile kit which makes him very powerful both early and late game in teamfights. Obviously, he has an execute that's insanely powerful against tanks and even against squishies. He's not so amazing in super high level ranks like Masters level or SPL, but he's great for most levels of ranked. It's just like right at the top kind of echelon of play, he's quite easy to counter, but against like mid-tier to low-tier players, he's insanely powerful. And the final jungler is Pele. Similar to AlQun, this is really a snowball pick. She has sort of weak CC, but makes up for it with the insane burst, high sustain, early pressure, and the snowball potential she can bring to a fight. She does have a slightly weaker teamfight, mostly due to her lack of CC, but she still brings a lot of AoE damage and can get a lead early and just give that lead to her team later on so they can carry. It's very easy to get a big lead on Pele early on, and as long as you transition that lead into getting your team ahead, you should be fine. Moving on to some supports. The first one I would recommend would be Athena right now. She's probably the best support in the game. You can just group people up in a massive AoE, throw a Scylla ultimate at them or something, and that can practically win a fight on its own. She has cross-map rotations with the ultimate, block stacks that are really powerful both in lane against the ADC and also in teamfights. She has actually quite high damage for a support with the ultimate, the 3 and the 1. And obviously any burst heavy comps with things like the Scylla or the burst heavy ADCs like Ula can really capitalise on that taunt, get picks and just win fights. Support number 2 would be Geb, mostly because he kind of soft counters Athena with the ultimate, but just because in general Geb is really good. The shield is like, has never been bad, the shield is just really powerful for like the CC cleanse and the health shield. He has great teamfight CC that combos quite well. He can like engage with a blink ult or just a straight up ult, and then also his 2. Both his CCs are in AoE as well, which is really powerful. And also he does have that anti-crit passive. If you're against a certain type of ADC, like maybe an Artemis or a Jingwei that likes to go crit, you can use that. And the final support pick is Terra. She has an insane teamfight ultimate that can affect up to 10 people in a fight, which is really powerful. The AoE root can easily hit multiple enemies because it's one of the largest AoEs in the game. The wall can block like jungle pathways, and also the stun is very powerful. She has situational heals that aren't really amazing to use for the heals. She's better using it for the root, but if you need to just like fall back and drop a heal, you can do that. She's kind of weak early on, especially at level 1, but once you get past those first few levels, she becomes really powerful in teamfights. You're mostly picking her for that ultimate, but be aware that you may lack like CC in a teamfight, like you don't have a huge Geb or Sylvanas ultimate or something like that. Your ultimate is very different, but if you can use it effectively, she's also a very powerful ranked support pick. And finally, ADCs. The first one is Chernobog. He's basically been a top tier ADC since its release. The ultimate is absolutely broken, like the cross-map rotations you can get off with it, the fact that it activates his passive immediately, and the damage mitigation are all just combined to make a really powerful ultimate. He has great boxing and laning phase with like reasonably fast clear, and obviously his passive gives him that additional benefit in terms of boxing. He can back for free in team fights and just ult straight back to an enemy in lane and potentially land a kill, or ult to even another lane if he needs to. He can dodge a lot of abilities and damage by just dashing into a wall, like if you see a Vulcan ultimate, dash straight into a wall and you just dodge it entirely. He can also just bait time in the wall for his teammates to come over. He's very hard to gank and shut down because of that, so he can farm very easily, and he can also flex as a mid pick, which is powerful in pick ban. Second ADC is Rama. He has insane DPS with the steroid that a lot of other ADCs in the meta right now don't have. He works great with both pen and crit builds, so you can flex that according to the game. He has a really safe laning phase, especially at level 1 he's really great because the Astral Arrows clear insanely fast compared to a lot of other ADCs. And he's just a very safe pick, like you can build him how you want basically, you can play him how you want, and he just performs in teamfights really well. And finally we have Jingwei. Once again a very safe ADC because she can easily farm and back if needed due to the passive. She has great burst with the crit on her too, and damage late game with crit. It does mean she's weaker with the pen build though, because usually you don't want to go pen because you're sacrificing the crit on her too. But she's really good for going aggressive in teamfights with that knock up and dash. But she can also play safe if she needs to and dash away and ult away and things like that, so she's just very powerful and versatile. So that's my opinions right now for carrying ranked conquest games. These may be different for you as it's more important to be good at the god than just playing the OP ones, but if you can be good at the OP gods, you've got a better chance at winning ranked games. But yeah, as always, let me know your thoughts on this video in the comments and subscribe for more videos like this one in the future. And I'll catch you guys later. Peace out, nerds.